Hello of the Rebecca Saunders Show. This is a super duper episode where it's actually a two-way conversation between me and the wonderful Hannah Nieves, who I met in the most magical place on earth. And no, I don't mean Disneyland. I mean Richard Branson's private island, Necker Island. Welcome to the show, Hannah.
Thank you so much for being here. It is so nice to see your face. And oh my goodness, I still have chills. Like that whole experience was just on another level.
Right. And it had been on my vision board for such a long time. I know some of the ladies when we were there had it on their vision board for literally years. Mine wasn't years long, but years. What brought you to the island? We went with business chicks. You hadn't really had much exposure to them being in New York. Like here in Australia, we have had business chicks in our lives for a decade. What got you to the island with us?
It's so many people ask me that question and I still don't even know. I remember I got an email. This was like the end, like I would say October of last year. And the subject line just said Necker Island with a question mark. And at first I was like, oh, this is spam. I was like, what is this person emailing me this stuff for? I almost deleted it. And then I opened it up. I'm like, oh shit, like she's serious. So I'm freaking out. I didn't even know what it was, how much it was. It could have been like $1 million to go. I would never have known. I just wrote, I'm in. Just send me whatever the details are. And that's how it happened. And I remember, they had mentioned too, majority of the group is going to be Australian. And I was like, listen, I am down. I know no one. And that's like the best place to be because, these relationships and friendships also came from that.
I love that. And actually, I think that's why you and I bonded so well, because you just going, bugger it, I'm in. Yes, I'm in. I'm all in is something that I have a trait of doing a lot. Of just
you do.
This feels right, so let's do it. So before we dive too much into Necker stories, for those that don't know you, we're gonna spin this conversation because this podcast is going out on my podcast, but also on your podcast. We're gonna do something a little bit different.
Yes.
You and I both run, or for me, I have run 3 brands consecutively. Like, what is your world and where do all your 3 brands nicely fit together?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is like a day of my life, right? Running 3 companies. Most people think I'm crazy. But it started out, all the good ones, but we have a full service agency where we do done for you marketing, branding, and PR, work a lot with lifestyle brands, work with a lot of startups, getting VC funding, things like that. We have Haus, which is a community and network for multi-passionate women. So it just makes sense, where we host events and whatnot and have mastermind programs in our shop. And then we have This Hudson Studio, which I know you and I really resonated with, which is the Hudson Valley's first creative photo studio. So that's a little bit about me, but I feel like you and I really bonded over that too, because you have such a strong video background. And I'd love to know for our audience that's listening in too, can you just share a little bit about like your background? And because there's so many synergies.
Yeah, for sure. So I also have 3 brands that I'm going to call them brands because it's still one business for me and it runs under Rebecca Saunders. Everything can be found at rebeccasaunders.com. And we've got the thing that you said with the studio space. I've had my film studio now for going on 5 or 6 years. So we are the only soundproof filming studio outside of the big major networks in Sydney, Australia. So for those people that don't know really what that soundproof space means, I mean like sound deadened. You can clap and the sound does not travel. So it's completely soundproof. It's an old TV studio, big white psych. We do a lot of podcasting, educational content. Online courses have been, as I'm sure you all have guessed it, a huge part of our world with live streamings in the last couple of years. So that for me is pretty awesome. I love walking in there through the big, you're very, your studio is very neutral and muted. Mine's very bold colors and bright doors. And, the studio's the white neutral space and everything around it is very pop of color. So that's the studio for us. I've then got a full scale production company, which operates across Australia and New Zealand and into the UK and the US for my corporate clients. And we work with predominantly corporates in that space, as well as speakers, business leaders and course creators. So it's all about, for me, my whole ethos is about making video easy. I don't want life to be hard. So if I want life to be easy, video's got to be easy for me. So we make video easy for our clients. And then my third brand, which has pivoted a little bit since you and I last spoke, is the Video Business Bootcamp. And so it takes my decade of knowledge and teaches other video professionals how to not make the mistakes and grow faster.
I love that about you too, because I feel like video also is one of those topics that is, first off, trending right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I think too, the way that you simplify video on, such an incredible way, I think is just so, so powerful.
Thanks, babe. Thank you. I'm glad I make it easy. I'm glad I make it easy. So you and I did completely gel on Necker. And, we've been chatting regularly on Insta ever since we've left the island. What was your favorite part?
Oh my goodness, there's so many favorite parts. Well, first off, like obviously the speakers were fantastic, but I think too, just like number one, being able to disconnect, but disconnect in a different way. When I went there, I had a lot of expectations, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this too, but I had a lot of expectations for myself and like, this is what I'm going to walk away with and blah, 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 blah. And when I got there, I was so pleasantly surprised with what I actually walked away with. And it was like these connections, these relationships. And I felt like I healed a part of myself that needed healing. So actually wasn't business related.
Yeah. Oh, so when someone asked me, how was the experience? And I feel they're expecting me to go, it was amazing. It was incredible. It was high energy. It was all this stuff, which it was. But for me, the word is grounding. And I know that sounds super strange to people listening going, hold on a second. You were on a billionaire's private island and you found it grounding? Like, yeah, actually I did. It was nice. It was that disconnect. It was the conversations, and I didn't go into it with any preconceived expectations. So I went into it knowing, what will be. And I was super burnt out before going in. Like, we'd just come off the back of the busiest 2 years of my career, right? Like, when the industry was crashing around us, we thrived because we had the space, the systems, the ability to continue operating. And I went into it going, well, let's see what happens. Let's see. Like, coming from Australia, I knew Emma and some people, and like the business chicks team, I didn't know anyone else before we went. So I'm with you on the conversations piece and coming away with those friendships and connections.
It was on another level too. And just like the experience itself, just being on this island, literally in the middle of the ocean, there is nothing around you. And just the experience of getting there, I felt like I was almost transported during that time to just a different place.
Completely. It felt so different, so surreal. And as much as we had connection to the internet, I don't know about you, but I didn't have my phone with me all the time at all. Like, I've got a lot of pictures, and you and I took a lot of little like snapshots, but in terms of having that on me all the time, being on it, documenting everything, I mean, we were taking behind the scenes, but I don't think very many people at all. I know I didn't. I'm not sure you did, but then again, I wasn't on social to follow you doing it. Talking and sharing stories like we would normally share in our day-to-day lives. We just weren't. We were completely immersed in just being present, which I think is something that is so rare in today's busy world.
Oh yeah. I feel like this has been the theme, even coming back from Necker too, which I'm curious, what your biggest takeaways were after you came back, because I know for me, like, presence was a big one. And just like that reassurance of like, no, we're actually on the right path, but like our mission and our vision is so much deeper and articulated now. I actually, didn't walk away with all of these, profound business strategies. It actually was really deeply rooted on the impact and the mission and vision. So I'm just curious, like, afterwards, kind of what those takeaways were for you and the business.
So for me, it's interesting. So for people that have been following my story for a while, like, I was ready to close doors on the video business in 2020, right? Like, I was ready to just go, I'm done. I kind of want to do something else. Like, what do I want to do now? And I was really ready to do that. And then COVID hit, and my positioning in the marketplace, you know, in the industry, having been in it for a decade, the team around us, we went full throttle. Like we were a rocket to the moon, right? Like just let's go really hard and fast. And that was amazing. And then I got to sort of Necker and went, whoa, okay, that was a bit of a crazy couple of years, but what do I want to do? Like, where do I want to be? And so for me, it actually ignited that bubbling sensation inside of me that goes, you've always wanted to teach people how to do it. Like in my day-to-day world, running my studio and running my video business and hearing horror stories of other productions. And when I say horror stories, I'm not bagging out anyone that's like specifically done something wrong. It's more, they didn't know any better. And so it hasn't been a seamless experience for the client. Or I sit and watch productions that aren't mine unfold and go, could have done that a bit better, or could have handled that question, or, you know, that client a bit better. And so that's what sparked me. I sparked into, well, what do I want to create now? What's that next piece? The vision hasn't changed. My vision's always been have an impact on the world with video. Doesn't mean I've got to make it. Other people can make it, right? So I think for me, that was the biggest takeaway of just, for me, when we were sat listening to Richard and Emma chat, it was him going, you know, if you keep your eyes out, there's opportunities everywhere and industries are ready to be disrupted. And I was like, oh, okay. Like this feels right for me. Like the next stage is to teach my industry peers how to do it better, how to build a business better so that they can be better in society and live their lives better, you know?
I love that. And what I'm taking away is like this ripple effect on the world, like from this experience, like we're all impacting the communities around us, which are then, impacting their communities. And I think that's what's so powerful.
Completely. And I guess I'm curious from your, because you've run the community, right? Like we know the importance of the self-care, the time away, the investment in self. Not everyone can go to Necker. So for people listening now, where would you say that they start in terms of that stepping back, being present? Well, I've got it on a Post-it note in front of me right now, slowing down to be still in order to speed up.
Oh, I love this question. And I think too, I love solo trips, and this is something
that's where you and I differ. No.
I love solo trips. Like I remember when I first started my business, I went to a solo weekend in the Catskills by myself, and it just so happened my husband wasn't able to come like last minute. So I took the trip, and it was the best thing just to like take myself out on a date and just, be still with my thoughts. Now, for some people, like you, that might not be comfortable.
Oh my God. But it's freaking me out. We can come to that in a minute.
Yes. But I think too, really the thing that you resist the most, I find, is the thing you need to do. And for me, being still actually is really hard. I have a really hard time with being still. I'm constantly moving all the time, and it actually has been a hard thing to learn. But I've been doing like practices over the last few years, whether it's, for example, like taking my melatonin, bath at the end of the day, magnesium bath at the end of the day, and just like having rituals. And it doesn't have to be a 50-step routine, but having rituals in your daily life, I have found, can really bring yourself back to that, present moment. And then if you want to take it a step up, like going outside on nature, going for a walk, going on a solo trip, but like really creating this environment for yourself where you're able to feel that nurtured, feeling. So I'm curious for you though.
Yeah. Like, so for me, like I really love tech-free time. So for like a while ago, I put in place like no phones on the like every Sunday, no phones. And it took a while to train my friends and family that that's what I was doing. Cause I would get back to my phone to this, oh my gosh, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm not attached to it all the time. So you're right. It's those little tiny things. And for me, it's taking away from the tech. But yeah, I'm about to embark on a big trip. So, I'm coming to Hawaii. I'm doing New York. We're going to hang out in person, which I'm all excited about. Then I'm moving on. I'm hanging out with Nikki that we met at the retreat. I'm going to London for my mum's big birthday. And then I'm coming back. And as much as I'm seeing people along the way, I'm traveling solo on the whole trip. And there's only chunks of time where I'm like, in a retreat or with people. And I was saying to one of my best friends yesterday, going, I'm actually genuinely nervous. Like I'm not very good by myself. And it's something I've been trying to work on for a really long time. But I hate sitting with myself for a prolonged period of time. And so that for me is really hard. I mean, I could throw a dinner party 7 nights a week to have my house full and thriving, like just to have the noise, the conversation, and then then calm. But constant calm. Oh, I don't know what's going to happen in the next month and a half.
I'm so curious what your Enneagram is. I know we had this conversation, but I feel like we're like the same, but we have that opposite piece, because I am like, yes, give me all the alone time. I will thrive by myself in the woods.
Right. So no, I'm not like that in the slightest, but
I love it.
I'm not necessarily that person that wants to be out and about talking all the time. But if you were just one-on-one with me, sat at home or somewhere quiet or in a house in the woods that we just, rented for a weekend, blissful. But me solo by myself for a prolonged period of time, watch this space.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
So we've talked, like, what was the biggest business thing? Did you take anything business away?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think when I came back, I opened up social media and I started reading content, and I felt like things were very shallow. And maybe that's not the right word, not shallow, but like they lacked depth. And this is something I kind of started to feel, for a while now online with content. It's very, not say educationally driven, but like how to do this, or here's how we do that. And really I came back and I created this deeper connection of like, why do you do what you do? What do you want to do with this? Like, what is your long-term vision? And not just your long-term vision of I want to make $1 million, but like, what good are you doing in the world? And I think that's something that I took away, from Richard specifically, was that, he had mentioned, I don't necessarily just go and build businesses for the financial projections. I'm building businesses that will impact the world and do good for the world. And it got me thinking like, wow, like we all have a responsibility to do that. Yeah. And, I know for some people, they might think like, oh my goodness, but you're comparing yourself to a billionaire. But, it's one of those things like, if he can do it, I can do it. Yeah, right. You can do it. Like there was no question. I'm like, if he can do it, we absolutely can. And so I came back just like really assured with like where we're going. But then I also craved like a deeper connection with my clients. And then also my content started to shift, whether I liked it or not. I had so many people come back to me like within the first month after saying like, your energy is different. Your content is different. So I think it just really had a really deep shift in me, which then called in new type of clients that like really resonated with that. I'm just curious for you.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been interesting because I'm still trying to find that balance in my social presence between the video stuff of you can come make videos with me, but also this is how I do it, so I'm finding that balance. But the more I've shared about the boot camp and gone, I'm going to teach people how to do what I do. Like I run $1 million video production business and I don't film or edit. That's it. I don't do it. So it's one of those things that I go, I'm really excited to try that. And it goes back to that the things that Richard said, it was give it a go, like go all in and give it a crack. You're like, okay, well, let's not half-ass about it. Let's just go all in. The energy is good. And as soon as I started sharing it and saying, this is what I'm doing, I had the same responses from people. Your energy is right. Like the energy shift is incredible, or God, that feels good for you. Or like, that's amazing. Like you're going to nail that niche. Like you've gone from being like here to just funneling it all down. And it feels really exciting. Like I'm so excited to open those doors.
I love that. And I think too, what I took away from this as well is that collaborations and the power of like connecting with people. And I think that was another big piece too, from a business perspective, and not just from like a personal gain perspective, but like leaving Necker Island and meeting people you've never met before ever.
Yeah.
And being able to walk away and have conversations like this and like, you know, podcast episodes, we're going to meet in person. We're talking about collaborating on offers. Like there's so many beautiful things. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that perspective too, even for our listeners, on like just the power of like cultivating authentic relationships. Like first off, how you've done it, but also like the impact this can have, not just on your business, but like the world.
Yeah. Oh, interesting question. Okay. So I'm going to take it back to how I felt when I moved to Australia. So when I moved to Australia back in 2012, coming from the UK, we have Marmite, and the advert for Marmite has always been in my memory. You either love it or you hate it, right? You love it or you hate it. So I came into new country, new like thing going, well, I am who I am. So I'm just going to be me. And you'll either love it or you hate it. Like I'm either going to be your person or I'm not going to be your person. And that served me really well over the last 10 years. And then I moved that up into my business. And what I talk about is be a Sean, don't be a sheep. So like, you know, you can still be part of the flock. Is it a flock of sheep? I don't know. Pack of sheep, whatever it's called. But you can do it in your own way. And I think for me, the really cool piece was the ability to do that and be all right with yourself. Like it's exhausting to try and be someone that you're not when you're out on show, right? When you're out presenting your business or out on social media or trying to be someone that you're not, it's exhausting. So give up all the facades and just be you, right? And one of my mentors who, gosh, I've been working with Janine now for probably 5 or 6 years. And one of the things she said to me was, how do you feel going into this retreat without, what did she say to me? I think without hair. Like you're going into your first thing where you haven't done it before. You've been in your safe zone. When I say safe zone, I put myself out online all the time, but my safe zone of physical people. Slight backstory for those of your podcast that haven't heard my story behind me, but I've got alopecia. I've had it for 25 years. And only in the last 12 months have I decided to go completely hair-free. Thank you. COVID lockdowns, wearing a mask, having glasses, wearing a wig, something had to go. And 2 of the things were mandatory for life, right? So one of them had to leave. So one of those things to me, I said to her, I went, you know what? I'm not nervous about that. I said, I'm more nervous about traveling there by myself than I am about having the conversations about why I haven't got hair. And to be honest, it didn't even come up, you know, like I said to her, I wasn't even nervous about that. But I tell you, this internal struggle and the work I had to do to really, really show up as me has been huge. And so to be able to walk into Necker and have those connections, and everyone was just themselves, right? There was no one getting up to put makeup on because they felt that they had to like have the mascara on or the full face of makeup, or, you know, it was swimmers all day and occasionally chuck a caftan on at night. There was no trying to be something. No, you've left the ego at the door, you know. And I think if you can cultivate relationships like that in business, where you can have conversations with your clients like they're friends, they become friends. And if you can be authentically you in what you're saying on socials, in person, you know, in life, gosh, the energy is so much better. Like,
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful, beautiful note too about like authenticity, because I think that's the biggest thing. Like people can feel when and I can tell in 2 seconds when someone's reaching out to me when they want something, you know, where it's, oh, I haven't heard from you in forever, but you want X, Y, Z, you know? And I think people can feel that. But when you're genuinely, first off, yourself, authentic, like you mentioned, but then also genuinely there and you care for that person. And that's what I love about like Necker Island specifically, is that, you know, you had people across the board, business size. You had people, making $10 million a year to, their first million, XYZ. It was kind of across the board.
Yeah.
But no, there was no ego there. There was no ego. Well, my business is bigger than yours, or I'm doing something more prominent than you. And I love that about the experience. But I think that was such a valuable lesson, because I think in a lot of situations it can be like that. But I think going back to the fact of cultivating authentic relationships to expand your network, your business, your life, comes down to authenticity. So I love that.
Completely. And, I think that comes back for me for the grounding piece, because everyone was just so grounded in themselves, including Richard, right? He was the most down to earth person I think I've probably ever met.
I was so surprised,
right?
But it's so refreshing too. And I think that goes back to this sense of identity. It's a sense of identity where people know who they are, they know what they're bringing to the table, and they know what they stand for. And I thought that was really powerful, because the energy reflected that.
Completely. And like you said, it ripples through. So, harnessing it, I think that's the hardest bit. And I'm curious on your take on this, because I know it is it's your sweet spot, right? Like in what you love to talk about and teach with your clients. But how do you go about harnessing that and putting it into your brand so that it does become part of you, an extension of you into the company?
I mean, there's so many pieces to that. And I, talk a lot about, especially a lot of the clients, and people probably listen to this podcast episode, either you're operating a business under another entity, or it's under your personal brand, right? And it's you. And I always tell clients, you are the brand. At the end of the day, even though I have, 3 brands and only one of them has my name on them, the other 2 are still tied to me, right? And people look for me. And I think when it comes to kind of harnessing also the identity, those thoughts, those beliefs, that authenticity comes down to getting very clear on your values. Number one, like, what do you actually stand for? Yeah. And with that, I think it almost is like a ripple effect with your brands, because like, if you know what you stand for, the values, the standards of excellence that you want to operate under, the mission and vision, right? It's a very clear picture to create the same thing for 3 brands. I think, you probably hear this too, especially with messaging, probably for video content, it's probably the toughest thing people go through. Like, what am I saying? Yeah. And I hear the same thing, but it's like, if you're so clear on who you are and the value you bring to the world, the impact you bring to the world, it's a lot easier to really communicate that, whatever platform that is, whether it's video or PR opportunities or anything along those lines.
Yeah, completely. And I think one of the things that I would add to that is, once you nail it and you get that right, God, you feel like a record on repeat sometimes, don't you? Just a little bit.
Always.
Always. And I think that's our biggest detriment, sometimes as business owners, and we build something to a point and then we go, bored with this, we're going to burn it all down and start again. Or I'm bored with saying the same thing, I'm going to shift it up a bit. And we forget that people maybe haven't really heard what we said the first time. And so we didn't really need to change it. And now we've caused confusion, which I think is a really interesting thing to sort of spin to add to that. It's adding that layer of almost a simple business is a profitable one, right? Like, you just need to be.
It always is.
Here's the journey. Let's go.
Yep. Simplistic everything. I think that's the biggest thing. I strive for, not just in business, but in life, but just simplicity with your message, with your outcome, with the problem you solve, with who you are as a leader. It really is just simplified at its truest core. And I think that's what makes these highly successful businesses. We're not here to complicate and create 80,000 offers. We're here to solve one problem.
You just completely nailed it there in a sentence, and I think that actually probably might be one of my big takeaways from today, right? Like, I always try to make sure that the podcast, that episodes that we do, have big takeaways, and I think that is a huge one, to just focus on the really key thing and keep selling that one or 2 things so that you become known for it, and then it's easy. It comes back to my whole world of easy.
I love that. That is, there's so many key takeaways from this episode, right? Talked about connections and collaborations, talked about some of the key learnings from Necker Island here, building a simplistic business in life, self-care. I think we covered literally everything and anything.
I know, right? I know. And I'm going to wrap it. I reckon we call it and we wrap that, because we've packed so much into half an hour for both our listeners here. I think it's amazing. So for the benefit of my listeners to the Rebecca Saunders Show, Hannah, where can people find you? More about you, what you do, what you offer?
Of course. You can find me at HN Haus or hnhaus.com. You'll find a link to all of our other brands from there. We have our podcast, the HN Haus podcast, which you can listen to as well. And we have our blog and tons of free resources. But I'd love for our listeners to find you. So tell us your Instagram handle, website, all the things.
You can find me at rebeccasaunders.com, or I'm on all social platforms with the handle at the Rebecca Saunders. Because there's only one of me, right? The same handle on all platforms.
So great. Thank you so much for having this conversation.
Thank you so much, lovely. And I look forward to doing it again in person very, very soon.
So soon.